Global labor shifts, unraveling the impact of job outsourcing on poverty in the United States. Every year, United States businesses outsource about 300,000 jobs, and by the year 2015, U.S. affiliates overseas have hired 14.3 million workers. If those jobs were reallocated to the U.S., up to 5.9 million unemployed Americans could have been hired, and 4.3 million more who were working part-time could have transitioned to a full-time position. One employee let off from a finance company describes of their employers opting for outsourced workers from India, quote, "It feels like no one cares for us. The environment is really bad. People are bitter." Despite the number of jobs being outsourced by American companies, foreign companies are also outsourcing jobs to the U.S. citizens. Insourced jobs totaled nearly 8 million American workers in the year 2019. This insourcing of production to the United States, in conjunction with the outsourcing of jobs lowering costs for other countries to purchase products, has had a significant and positive impact on our economy. For those who do not know, outsourcing is when companies obtain a good or service from a foreign supplier rather than using internal suppliers. These two statistics tell completely different stories as to how job outsourcing is affecting the United States economy and joblessness. So, what is the solution and how does this affect poverty in the United States? Job outsourcing is often misunderstood, and its effects are buried amongst misleading statistics molded to push a certain agenda. Job outsourcing must be part of a larger economic discussion when attempting to address poverty. Its benefits and detriments must fully be understood in order to effectively determine when to utilize versus avoid outsourcing. Proponents of U.S. businesses outsourcing jobs often cite the ability of retailers to make much greater profits that come from paying workers from developing countries in comparison to workers in the United States. Global revenue for business outsourced in 2019 was around $92.5 billion US dollars, with half of that revenue being generated just in the Americas. In addition, 63% of organizations perceive outsourcing as a cost-cutting tool, according to the Deloitte Global Outsourcing Survey in 2016. Outsourcing lower-skilled jobs to workers outside the United States allows companies to pay those workers less than workers from the United States because the standard of living and cost of living in many other countries is less than the United States. Businesses save money on trivial jobs and can instead use the money to create new jobs, increase training for employees, and/or increase salaries of employees. Increasing profit margins is all well and good for companies and the general U.S. economy. However, revenue is increasing at the expense of workers in lower-skilled jobs. Many say that workers losing their jobs due to outsourcing will eventually get better, higher-paying jobs created in new industries or through more training. It may be the case that new jobs will be created in certain professions, such as information technology, robotics, or engineering. Workers with these skills will be able to find work in similar areas to their previous work and are typically not in any financial struggle. Workers without higher-level skills, however, will not. Outsourcing jobs in manufacturing or human resources eliminates that group of workers entirely. Low-skilled jobs involving repetitive manual labor have quickly been replaced by cheap labor abroad. Human resources positions are filled by those who will work for less abroad. Individuals who work these jobs typically do not have high-level skills and were paid low salaries to begin with. Exacerbated by the fact that they could now be out of work entirely, this group has become wary of their position in companies moving forward. To determine human resources employees' expectations and fulfillment, one London-based company surveyed their human resources employees twice. First, right after management informed them of possible outsourcing and automation, and second, 18 months after the initial survey. Employees noted that they expected to be very anxious about the future, felt somewhat secure about their job, and were unsure if these changes were for the better. Though this is a company from London and not the United States, one can expect the same sentiment to be true for any employee who has been told that their position may be replaced by someone somewhere else who is willing to take less. In the same study, the follow-up survey contained a mixed bag. Employees felt less anxious about the future and more trust in the management than in the initial survey, but felt less job security. One might argue that although the employees felt less secure in their position at the company, the fact that they are more confident about the future and trusting of the company shows outsourcing simply increases competition and overall satisfaction in the company. However, 103 of 213 employees in human resources responded to the initial survey, whereas only 48 of 128 employees in human resources responded to the second survey. In the 18 months between the two surveys, 85 employees had left the company, mostly by means of quote-unquote voluntary redundancy, according to the company. Though there are positive metrics after employees understand the role of outsourcing at this company, this can largely be attributed to the fact that employees remaining have survived the downsizing in their department and are now more favorably disposed toward the company. So, job outsourcing increases profits and tends to increase job satisfaction for those who are able to stay at the company. But what happens to workers who are replaced by jobs outsourced? While the United States is the leader in outsourcing jobs, other countries are following suit. Because the United States has a very open labor market, employees are laid off, quit, or hired at a much higher rate than workers in other countries. As a result, many jobs have been created in the United States since the introduction of outsourcing, and many foreign companies have begun to set up operations in the United States and hire American workers. For example, foreign companies are increasingly creating production centers in the United States for more direct manufacturing of goods. Automobile companies like Honda, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, or Toyota have opened or reopened factories from the United States, providing jobs for lower skilled workers. Because outsourcing is not limited to United States companies, many large corporations around the world are utilizing the American workforce as well. Moreover, increased profits from outsourcing allows companies to increase their spending on training employees or offering training to those who want to build new skills. In an effort to enhance productivity and competitiveness at their company, IBM created a $25 million retraining program for any of their employees concerned about losing their jobs to outsourcing. Efforts like these show that companies are still invested in their employees and are looking for the optimal balance between outsourcing and keeping jobs within the country. Job outsourcing can have a significant effect on the American workforce. The U.S. Department of Labor estimated that about 3 million workers lost their jobs due to outsourcing. But there is no comprehensive list on the breakdown of these jobs. Some workers with specialized jobs can be replaced by workers in other countries who will do the same or similar quality of work for lower pay. In these instances, workers will often be able to find another job similar to the one they previously had, or a new job that will be created due to the lower amount of money spent on the outsourced workers. Though not all of these workers are unable to find work, lower skilled workers likely will have to find jobs different from their previous work. Blue-collar workers are typically on the lower end of socioeconomic status, and thus are at a greater risk of falling into or staying in poverty. Job outsourcing only adds to the uncertainty of individuals' ability of upward mobility and job security. If proper policies or safeguards are not put in place to protect these workers or offer alternative employment and training opportunities, this section of the American workforce will be lost by the swallows of poverty. The shift of foreign manufacturing companies to the United States has been a reprieve for some workers, but more must be done to ensure more workers do not lose jobs entirely. Companies which save money from outsourcing must begin to implement or continue to implement training opportunities for prospective employees and retraining opportunities for current employees in order to prevent major job loss and lack of competitive work environment. Because job outsourcing is seen as only an economic discussion rather than a poverty discussion, the focus tends to be on whether job outsourcing is helping or hurting the American workforce as a whole, instead of whether it is helping or hurting those in the lowest economic situations. U.S. policy has acted to protect individuals who lost their jobs due to trade or outsourcing through the Trade Adjustment Assistance, or TAA, program. It is a very limited program, and unfortunately, as of July 1st, 2022, the U.S. Department of Labor has halted acceptance of new petitions or requests to be protected under the TAA program. As a result of this termination, more than 40,000 service sector workers and 23,000 production workers became ineligible, and over 8,000 more workers did not have access to an average of $13,000 in training benefits and $23,000 in income support payments. Job outsourcing does not only affect workers by reducing the number of possible jobs, but also by reducing the number of available benefits to those still working in the available jobs. In an effort to increase those benefits, greater technology-based skills training should be implemented by employers and in education in order for workers and students to adapt to the future with business and technology. Job outsourcing and the globalization of business does not only affect workers losing or gaining jobs in the United States. Other countries that take on these outsourced jobs may suffer unintended consequences. While the cost of living in developing countries being lower than the United States allows workers from these countries to be paid less, this can ultimately stunt the economic growth of and deindustrialize the country. If workers continue to be paid at a low rate, they cannot improve their economic status nor be a significant consumer in their country, so the economy of the developing country does not get stronger. The discussion of outsourcing should not be whether it should be part of the American economy. Job outsourcing is here to stay in the United States, so policy should reflect how best to protect those most vulnerable to the negative effects of outsourcing in an attempt to prevent them from losing their jobs and/or falling into poverty. Outsourcing can and will provide an influx of new job opportunities, so reallocating workers to new jobs will be crucial in maintaining the lower skilled workforce across the United States. Thank you. For more information and research, please refer to the references in the description below.